an individual who's a very dear friend of mine and someone who has been on the front line on not just the political sphere, but on the line, if you will, of bringing freedom and liberty to every person in our state of Michigan and frankly around the country with his efforts. He's an incredible role model, Senator Pat Colbeck. Now Pat has been on this issue of voter fraud for years. And because he's honest, he had a hard time finding allies. Not just in the state, but around the country. A little background on Pat. He's not your typical person who goes into politics. Senator Pat Colbeck earned a bachelor's degree and master's degree in aerospace engineering at the University of University of Michigan. Well, he has 24 years of management. That was Sarah Westall, Minnesota. Consulting and engineering experience. Pat was a two-term state senator, ran for governor, and let me tell you something. If Pat would have become the governor of this state, and I'm going to say this, and he's not, and I don't want him to address this, but I truly believe that there was some funny business in his election, and it would not surprise me if scorecard wasn't implemented against this honest man, this honest to goodness patriot. Pat ran for governor, should have won, and if he would be governor today rather than Corona Gretchen, our state would not be the largest POW camp in all of North America. Pat was on the ground. We were in touch before the election. Pat was on the ground during the election. The poor guy didn't sleep for about 4 days straight. He was in hand-to-hand combat on the front lines in Detroit. It's my honor to bring in my friend, an incredible patriot, Senator Pat Colbeck. Pat, welcome to Operation Freedom.
Hey, it's great to be with you today. Sorry, I run a little bit late. I actually just wanted to get out to sign an affidavit that's going to be featured in a lawsuit that we're going to be submitting later this afternoon. And I'll tell you, we've got these guys dead to rights. They're not getting away with it. This attempted coup is going to be exposed. And we all talk about draining the swamp. Well, sometimes you need one of those seminal events in order to give people the courage to go off and do the right thing. I think this is going to be that moment.
Pat, educate us on the lawsuit. Educate us on what you saw on the ground and how they stole it.
Well, as you said, we were, I was on the ground in Detroit at the AV Counting Board from about 5 o'clock on Election Day through all the craziness of what happens in the after hours, if you will, all the way till the next evening around 5:30 or so. So during that time frame, one of the first things that I did when I got into the counting board was I asked the official in charge by the name of Chris Thomas. I said, Chris, how are the tabulation results coming from the tabulation scanners going to be handed off to third parties such as the county? In other words, how are all those numbers that we hear reported on the major media outlets, how are they getting those numbers? And because this is an important question, because what happens in most of the smaller precincts throughout the state is that you don't get any of those numbers reported until they've gone off at the end of the night. They balance the books, and so they verified that the number of voters in the poll book equals the number of ballots that they have in hand. And when the difference equals 0, they print out a little tape, put it onto a little flash drive that gets sealed up and sent out to the clerk's office, who and among 4 other copies that are sent elsewhere, including up to the state and the county. That's not what happened in Detroit. That's not what happened in Detroit.
What happened, Pat?
And a lot of the details are still taking shape. I just got off interviewing somebody that's going to help us nail down a lot of the details on how those handoffs happened. But the bottom line was none of these precincts were closed out in the city of Detroit. They went to a canvassing board elsewhere. Yet we're still getting all those report outs of the results, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if something's rotten in Denmark, we think we know exactly what is causing the smell, and we're going to go through a lot of that in detail. But I want to get my hat off to you, David, because if it wasn't for you, it was I had, right before going into the polls, a couple of days before, a day or so before, I had watched your episode with General McInerney talking about the hammer and the scorecard. So I had in RAM, I was sitting there going, all right, first thing I need to do is go off and check the network connections and make sure that this thing is isolated so that it can't be played with, or at least not easily played with by network-centric platforms such as a hammer and scorecard. And so I got in there, and I started looking at all the connections between all the different computers. And
what do you
I
find?
looked at the physical connections. I looked at the Ethernet cables that were underneath all these tabulators, which is where they scan in your ballots.
Yes.
I looked at the connections between them and the adjudicators, and I put together a little network topology diagram. And I'm telling you, Dave, all these guys are networked into routers that are connected to the internet. And if one of those computers is connected to the internet, they're all connected to the internet.
That's right. And they can all be, and they all can be accessed, hacked through Hammer, through Scorecard, you name it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we here, and by the way, there was a whole bunch of electronic poll books scattered all around as well. There were no physical Ethernet cables connected to them, but Dave, there were routers everywhere. And I've got snapshots of all the active Wi-Fi connections that were going on at the time of the counting board operations, and one of them was called AV_counter. So we have a feeling that a lot of those poll books were connected, and I'll give you another source of evidence to corroborate that, is that we have attestation to the fact that at 10 o'clock a.m. on November 3rd, we noticed that an error message popped up on one of the computers at the precincts. And the error message says, "Warning, this system is being hacked."
Interesting. Oh, imagine that. Shocking.
Yeah. So guess what? Guess what also happened around 10 o'clock at 11 on November 3rd?
What was that?
There was a little software glitch in Antrim County.
Oh, it's just a little software glitch and not a big deal.
So nothing to see here. These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Right.
And I'll tell you, when I asked the election officials there, I asked Daniel Baxter, who's the chief Detroit election official at the counting board, are these connected to the internet? He said no. I asked David Nathan, a former state representative, which was his deputy in command. Whenever he wasn't there, David was there. I asked David, are these connected to the internet? He says no. And I go, can you confirm that for me? I used to serve with him. He's a former state representative. And he goes, no, you're just going to have to trust me. And I go, you know what? Maybe you were lied to. Do me a favor. Just roll your cursor over or your mouse cursor over that little internet connectivity icon in the bottom right-hand corner. If it pops up and says connected to the internet, you might be wrong. And he refused to do that. He said, you're just going to have to trust me. Well, you know what? I don't trust him. And I think we got him on this. And I have a lot of people that can attest to the LAN connectivity icon that's out there is indicative of internet connectivity, and that was the tabulators, the adjudicators, as well as the computers that were used by the main election officials up at the up on stage that overseed all the operations. And there's so many other things that are going on in this that are going to be captured in some affidavits, David. Bottom line is it looked like there were two sets of books being tabulated in Detroit. One that was being cooked with paper transactions that people were just writing down just a few of the votes that were tabulated, and they were passing that up the line for manual data entry into the stage there. And the rest was all the stuff that was being electronically tabulated. So it's very interesting. I'm kind of curious to see which ones were actually reported out to the media.
Now, we're speaking with Senator Pat Colbeck, folks. So, Pat, in this little Antrim County, that ended up being initially it came in 60-some% Biden, 30% Trump, which all of us was a bunch of hooey because Trump 4 years ago had 60-some%. Ended up being switched over after their quote software.
It's a red county. Yeah,
that's soft.
You know how they caught that? All the voters started seeing the return saying, "What the heck happened? That's not our county." That's how it happened. It was the people who voted actually stood up and said, something's not going on right here. And they brought it to the attention of election officials, and they investigated and got it turned over.
And it was a switch of about 6,000 votes. So some people say, it's 6,000. Pat.
Yeah, add that to the 8,000 dead people who voted via absentee that's been confirmed. Add it to the 18,000 that came in without any voter verifications. They say came in on the same day voter registration stuff. You start creeping up on the idea of this 146,000 bogus lead that Joe Biden has in Michigan is not really a 146,000 vote lead. I contend that when all the dust settles on all this, Donald Trump will be proven to be our president for the next 4 years.
And Pat, with that 6,000, that same quote software glitch, and we know this electronic cyber warfare was going on the transfer in addition to this software glitch, which is just kind of soft pedaling it. That 6,000, that same software package is used in at least 47 counties in Michigan and another 30 states. Pat, tell me if I'm wrong. Is this an overstatement? Tell me if this is an overstatement. That just on that base, that little software glitch, if you look at this and translate it into the other counties just in Michigan, you are looking at a potential change of over 200,000 votes minimum. Am I off?
You can plug in whatever number you want with that system, because you can have access into the actual database upon which all those numbers are captured. And I'm going to be putting out a post at letsfixstuff.org tomorrow that's going to highlight the electronic connection, if you will, between all these different systems. There's a video that explained this better than I've ever seen by a gentleman by the name of Russell Ramsland. And it was in the wake of the 2018 election out in Texas, where they saw all kinds of gimmicks being played there. And it was the best walkthrough of how these systems work that I've seen. We also have the video from Kirk Wiebe, who highlights specifically the hammer and the scorecard. There's good information out there. We just got to get it out to people. But it has the potential for getting this election back into the win column for Donald Trump. The key is we want to count all the legal votes, not all the votes that were cast, because most of them are bogus. And we've already proven that. We want to count all the legal votes. And when that's done, Donald Trump's going to win. Right now, you know it as well as I do, Joe Biden is in a fake it till you make it strategy, and he's using the media as his cover to go off and just keep repeating something often enough so that somebody's eventually going to go off and believe it. I ain't believing it. He ain't the president, and he's not the president-elect, and Kamala's not the vice president-elect. We're going to go off and get these guys and their attempted coup out into the open. The legal actions are starting right now. There's essentially two different threads that we have to keep on track right now. One thread is this media thread where they're just going to go off and push the fake it till you make it strategy of saying, hey, I'm president, listen to me. And we're going to say, no, you're not. And so the important thing for all your viewers to understand there is make sure anytime you see a rally that's supporting our president, get out there. They can't ignore numbers. We need to make sure that we get out in the media and say, guys, no, he is not our president. The media does not pick who the next president is. They try to. It's the same media that's trying to pick the president or telling us who the president was before November 3rd. It shouldn't be any surprise that they're trying to tell us who the president is after November 3rd either, right? And then the second track that we really need to worry about is the legal track. And that's what I'm actively engaged in. That's what this affidavit's going to go off and support. That's where it's a little bit more of a slow burn. But I'm telling you, it's gonna get traction. And when it's all said and done, we are going to have that swamp drained come hook or by crook.
Pat, and we're speaking with Senator Pat Colbeck, letsfixstuff.org. Pat, many people say, okay, but this is so messed up. They're never going to get this thing sorted out in a week, a month, 2 months. And this is just, it's bad. It's wrong. It's criminal, but it's not going to, it's so deep and it's so messed up. We won't get any action. We won't get any results that they can act upon. What do you say to those folks?
It is going to take a long time. It's going to be painful. There's going to be, can you imagine how people are going to react once all the Biden supporters realize that he cheated to get it and that it was that Biden's not the president? They already had their celebration, which in a way is kind of a good news thing, right? So because Biden announced that he's already president, all the Biden supporters get to be happy for a while, but on January 20th, all the Trump supporters get to be happy again. That's the way I think this is going to all work out, but it's going to be some very troubling times there when they realize they're going to put out all kinds of false narratives because this is the media that controls it, right? Yep. The media is going to go off and push a false narrative that Joe Biden's a president. And they're going to continue to push it, even in the face of all the corruption that's going to be unearthed over the next few weeks. They're going to keep pushing that narrative, right? Just like Epstein didn't commit suicide. That's small potatoes compared to the whoppers of lies or that are going to be pushed by the media in this upcoming few weeks here. So everybody needs to focus on doing their own research, listen to folks like Dave Janda at Operation Freedom. They're going to give it to you straight, guys. We need to make sure that we stay focused on what's noble, true, excellent, and praiseworthy. Take with a grain of salt the narratives that the media is pushing. Go to the source data, and you're going to find out that the truth is going to attest to the fact that Donald Trump's the president.
Pat, Joe Biden told us what he was going to do. He already outlined to us. Derek, play the clip for Pat.
Secondly, we're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Yeah,
he told us.
He did. And, some people say that was a gaffe, but it was probably one of those gaffes of truth saying, oops, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So there's, guys, this is just starting. It's about time we paid the piper. We've been kind of letting all these minor infractions and even major infractions go by the wayside. I mean, you saw your friend General Flynn, what was done to him, the travesty of justice there, the fake Russian collusion narrative that we were having. We dealt with the baseless impeachment trial for President Trump for things that Joe Biden was actually guilty of, not President Trump. So, we've kind of been just kind of muddling through all those different scenarios. Well, now it's getting serious, folks. And who is our next election or our next president for the next 4 years? That's what the battle is all about right now. And we know the deep state, the folks in the swamp, are not going to give up power easily. And they want it. They want it so bad because once they get in, they're going to hide all the stuff that we've talked about over the last 4 years. They're going to try to hide it all. We can't let them win.
Pat, you mentioned you have an affidavit that you're going to file for the lawsuit.
Yes.
You had to get that notarized, correct?
Yep, that's what I ran in here. I was just a couple minutes late because I had to get it notarized.
You'll find this of note. I bring this up. This broke, actually, by Mary Fanning and Alan Jones at theamericanreport.org. Revoked. Lisa Deeley, chairwoman of Philadelphia City Commissioners overseeing the 2020 election, lost her PA notary license in 2018 for failing to verify signatures, yet they're trying to use her to verify the election in Pennsylvania. This is like that's like something out of The Onion. I mean, that's legit.
Well, and we've got examples of people of the Detroit City Clerk pushing through ballots that had no signatures associated with the ballot envelope. So that's a no-no. You never verified the identity of that person. So, guys, the rules are just for us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in the AV Counting Board in Detroit on election night, they had a rule that said you're not supposed to use cell phones. You're not supposed to use them to take pictures or anything like that. So, like usual Boy Scout I am, of course I didn't do any of that stuff because somebody in authority told me not to do it, so I didn't do it. I wish I wouldn't have done. I wish I would have taken pictures of everything out there. Because when you actually look in statute, the only thing that's prohibited from taking photos of it, and I knew this because I actually, signed on to that law, was you don't take pictures of people's ballots. That's it. Anything else is fair game. We should have documented it. But we got enough photos out here. We got these guys dead to rights. But I'm just so frustrated that, the people who are opposed to this fundamental transformation crowd. We're opposed to it because we follow the rule of law. We follow authority. We believe that there's a set of rules that everybody should follow equally and then without prejudice. The other guys play dirty. They don't care about any rules. They put the rules in there to go off and force you through the queue at Cedar Point while they go off and use the fast pass to get to the front of the line. And you know what? Tired of that. We're going to call them out. We've got them on the record. We've got some examples of fraud. And quite a bit. Matter of fact, I just came back from a California where we were capturing affidavits from all the poll challengers all across Metro Detroit. And I think, when we're all said and done with the affidavits associated with voter fraud in this next time, we may rival the IRS tax code in regards to the amount of paper that would have to be printed off for it. And hats off. And here's the big thing, David. Hats off to all the volunteers, the grassroots people that got engaged this time. We had over 500 people from volunteering for the Election Integrity Fund. We had over 1,200 people helping out with the GOP. People got engaged to protect their election this time around. And it was overwhelming when I got into the counting board on November 4th in the morning to see wave after wave of conservative poll challengers, either with the EIF or with the Republican Party, coming in to defend the sanctity of our election. And I tell you, it brought a tear to my eye then. And every time I think about it, when I see that wave come in, it brings a tear to me now. People are taking a stand to defend America. And this ain't over, folks. Tell Joe Biden to talk to the hand when he claims to be the next president, he ain't the next president. Donald Trump is going to be the next president.
Pat, I'd like to thank you for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. Let'sFixStuff.org. Let'sFixStuff.org. Folks, let Pat Colbeck be a role model for you. He's an incredible freedom fighter.